Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live community classroom with Michaels. Today, we're going to be learning Crochet 101. So we're going to be going over how to get started, how to build your foundation chain, and a few basic crochet stitches. We had a few changes to the schedule, but tonight we're joined by the brilliant Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life, which we are very excited about. She's wonderful. We adore her. My name is Renee L. from Yarn Inspirations, and I'll be helping with any questions you might have during today's class. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll make sure Mary Beth answers them. So while we're getting ready to kick things off, let us know where you're watching from and if you've ever crocheted before. Handing it back to you, Mary Beth.
Well, hi guys, I'm so happy to be with you tonight. We're going to do crochet from the very beginning. We're going to do the very basic crochet stitches. And once we have brought you over to the crochet dark side, you'll be taking class with us forever. We're going to use the Ogo tonight, the Karen Big Donut Ogo. This is the Ginger Spice colorway. Now, whatever yarn and crochet hook you happen to have, that's going to be fine because you're learning. But we're pretty excited about this new product that has all different colors in it. So you can use different colors when you work. But for tonight, I'm just going to start on one end and keep stitching and see if it changes colors by itself. So you're going to want to, when you're learning, you want to make sure that you got a relatively light color. You don't want to try and learn on black yarn because it's too hard to see. You want a crochet hook that is suitable for the yarn that you have chosen. And when you go to Michaels and pick up your yarn, there'll be a little box on the back that tells you what the hook size is that's recommended. Now for the Big Donut, we recommend an H8 or 5mm hook. I have gone up one size, and the reason I do that on camera is I want the hook to be big enough for you to see, and I want the stitches to be loose enough that you can see what I'm doing. So you can go ahead and when you're learning, you just go with what's on the packaging, and then as you get more experience, you can figure out if you need to change hook sizes or yarns or all that kind of thing. So Kelly, if you would, let's switch to the tabletop, please, and we will get started. So again, we're pretty excited about the Ogo. It's new packaging, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but basically all you have to do to open these bad boys, if the tabs are pushed in, push them back up, give this a tug. There's some double stick tape down here, and that's what holds it all together. And you can pop the cardboard out. And then if you look where this little split is, where the colors join, you can see this clear plastic tab on the inside. Now, sometimes you can give it a tug and it'll snap, but other times you just get your scissors out like I'm doing right here and cut that little tab. And then you can either leave it there while you're stitching, or if you're going to split the colors up because you use them in a different order, which again, we're not going crazy tonight, you can just do what I'm doing and pull that tab right out. So I am going to, we work on the Ogo from the outside. The yarn goes from the outside in. And one of the things we love about working in this direction is you don't get tangles. A lot of you, if you have tried to crochet or knit before, and you got a ball or a skein at the store, and it says it was a center pulled ball, so you tried to do that and then you got a big tangled knot in the middle. We call that yarn barf in the trade. That's a technical term. If you use the Ogo from the outside in like I'm doing, you don't get those tangles. So it's a really good product to learn on. But for right now, I'm going to push this off camera because it is distracting. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. There are all kinds of different crochet hooks that we have at Michaels. We have some with the handles, some without the handles, etc., etc., etc. You will, again, as you get to be a more confident crocheter, you'll decide what kind of hooks work for you. I really like these bamboo ones because I am old. They are comfortable, but you'll find whatever is comfortable for you as you move along. Now, there are two different ways to hold your hook when you get started, and you may naturally fall into one or the other, but one is called the pencil hold So you're holding your hook this way and you're using your hand in this direction to manipulate the hook. And the other one is called the knife hold. I am a knife holder, so that's how I will be stitching tonight. And the knife hold is I have my, the long part of the hook is pretty firmly in my grasp, and I'm going in this direction. I'm using my whole hand to manipulate the hook. Now, is one better than the other? No. It is simply a matter of what is comfortable for you. And again, if you're just starting out, if you're just learning, it's really okay to try both and see what works better for you. I've discovered in my years of teaching that most people hold their hook the way their teacher did. So if you have somebody that's helping you, you tend to hold your hook and tension your yarn in the same way that they do, and that's okay. So the cut end of the yarn, that's the tail yarn. We'll call that the tail now and forever. And then the side of the yarn that is attached to the ball or the skein is called the working yarn. So the first thing I'm going to do is form a slip knot and put it on my hook. And I want to go maybe 4 to 6 inches from the end. I don't want to be so close to the end that that little end pulls out. And again, if you're doing a project as opposed to just a practice swatch, you want a nice long end on here so you can weave it in later. So here's my fold. Again, maybe 4 to 6 inches from the end. And I have my fold, and I'm going to twist that loop. So my tail yarn is on the top and my working yarn is underneath. So I'm going to bring my thumb and index finger from the back through the loop. I'm going to grab that working yarn and pull it through. Now you can see I'm giving the tail yarn a little bit of a tug, and that's going to make my slip knot. And I'm going to put that slip knot on my hook and tighten it up. And I'm going to do that one more time. So if you didn't catch it, it's okay. I'm going to do it one more time before we keep moving. All right. Now, one of the reasons we call it a slip knot is if we don't like it, it's in the wrong place, or we don't need it to be there anymore. If I tug those two sides, it slips right out. It's not there anymore. So one more time, I'm going to pull up a fold of yarn 4 to 6 inches in from the cut end of my tail. I'm going to make a pretty sizable loop and give it a little twist. I have my tail yarn on the top and my working yarn on the bottom. I'm going to bring my thumb and index finger through from the back to the front through that loop, grab that working yarn and pull it through, give a little tug on the tail. So there's my slip knot, and I'm going to put that slip knot on my hook and tighten it up. Now I want to talk about the hook a little bit. Now I was talking about tightening it up. I want it to fit on this straight, fat part of the hook. I don't want it to be super close to the pointy end down here by the throat, because that's going to be smaller than the gauge of my hook and my work will be super tight. And I don't want to push it way back here on the thumb rest. That's the thumb rest. Because if you notice, that is wider than the part of the hook that's right here. So this part here, this part of the hook is the part that gives us gauge, that determines the size of the stitches. So you don't want to work way back here on the thumb rest, and you don't want to work way up here in the throat, because that's going to make everything either way too big or way too small. Renee, do we have anything on getting ready? Do you have any questions on getting ready?
Nothing so far, but Linda says she did it. She got the slip knot. So just want to have a
Go
little moment of
Linda!
celebration for that. So far, so
Cheers.
good.
And now you're addicted. Okay.
Yeah, welcome to your new hobby, Linda.
I always call it welcome to the crochet dark side, but
yeah,
that's me.
welcome
All
everyone.
right. Now, the next thing, and this is more of an art than a science, you will figure out what is comfortable for you. But people always ask, where does this go? And I've seen people like weaving in and out of their fingers and loop-de-doo around here and all this other kind of crazy stuff. That's not how I do it, but however you do it is right. So the thing I say all the time, and I teach tons and tons of classes, is there are no crochet police. They're not going to come get you and complain that you're doing it wrong. And also, as long as you are internally consistent, by which I mean, as long as you do things the same way throughout your project, it will look consistent, it will look neat, and you don't have to get excited about it. So for me personally, I keep my yarn over my, you see how it's over my index finger? And then these three fingers just form a little, I don't have a death grip, it just forms a little tunnel that the yarn goes through. That's how I tension my yarn. You can do it, honestly, you can do it however it works for you. So here is my hook. Now this slip knot that we have put on the hook, this does not count as a chain. A lot of people get confused when they're counting chains. This does not count. It's just on there because we got started. So I'm in crochet, especially tonight where we're not doing anything fancy. We're always doing our yarn over, by which I mean we're bringing the yarn over the hook. We always go from back to front, always over the top of the hook and always with the hook in front of the working yarn, never the other way around. It's a good habit to get into. It doesn't matter so much for basic crochet, but as you continue to explore and move on to other techniques, it's super important that you are yarning over from back to front. So I'm going to bring my yarn over from back to front. So now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm trying to see how close I can get with you guys still being able to see. So that's that slip knot that I started with, and that's my working yarn. And you can see I'm using my thumb and my middle finger to hold the knot into place because there's nothing much to hold on to right yet. I want to make sure that I can keep a good handle on things so that I can keep going. So now I'm going to use the hook and bring this fold of yarn through this one. So you'll notice, just out of habit, I'm angling my hook ever so slightly down so that it doesn't get caught. So I brought it through, came back to 1 loop on my hook, and that is 1 chain. That is a chain 1. So we've done 1 chain. Let's make a bunch more. Yarn over from back to front. Use the hook to pull through the loop that was already there, and watch, I'm just angling it. I'm not trying to turn it down, but I'm giving it a little bit of a twist so that it doesn't get caught on my existing loop, and I'm pulling it through. And the other thing I'm doing, once I've completed my chain, I'm making sure that it fits on the part of the hook that I said was responsible for the gauge. I don't want to work too close to the throat. So that was 2 chains. I'm going really super slow so you can see 3, 4. You can also see that thumb and middle finger that I'm using on my left hand. I'm moving it up closer with every stitch. I don't want to be trying to hold it way down here and then chaining way up here because that's too sloppy. It doesn't give me enough control. So I have that loop over my finger, and I'm using my thumb and my middle finger to hold the existing chains. I hope this is 5. If I have miscounted, forgive me. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can see the yarn's just coming up through that little tunnel I made with my fingers. I don't have a death grip on it. So I have made 11 chains, and then I want to start and make my first row of single crochets. Now you'll see this, the chain stitch is used all over your crochet pad project. There are chain stitches at the beginning, like we just did. There's chain stitches in certain stitches. There's chain stitches at the beginning of the row. In lace work, there's chain stitches between stitches. So that chain is always the same thing. You're yarning over from back to front and pulling it through the existing loop that is on your hook. How we doing? Renee, we doing okay? You said you wanted me to make sure they got the chain stitch before I went too crazy.
Yes. Question for you. What would your
Mhm.
recommendation be for a left-hander, processing these classes? They would hold the hook with their left hand. Do you have any other tips?
Honestly, it really is just a mirror image. You know what I mean?
Just a
So I'm
mirror.
right-handed and this is how the video looks. If you can hear the video, it's going to be
Yeah.
that. Do you know what I mean? The hook's going to be in my left hand. The working yarn is going to be in my right hand. It is an exact mirror. The other thing I will say, and this is up to you left-handed people, this is up to your individual preference. My sister, for example, is left-handed, has been left-handed her entire long life, but she crochets and knits right-handed
Yeah,
because
my friend is like that too.
since she learned from scratch, she just learned to do it the way I did it because that was easier for her to do. So that doesn't work for everybody, but it does for some people. And I will also say our partner, our Yarn Inspirations partner, Tamara Kelly, which is Moogly blog, she has some left-handed videos on her YouTube channel.
Mhm.
So I would definitely check out Tamara because she has some left-handed content.
Awesome. So I'm just going to go to one question quick. So Molly asked, so if the knot is too tight, this is tricky, right?
Well, it depends on what you mean by the knot. If you
I
mean the
assume the
chain
slip
stitches,
knot, yeah.
yeah, except again, I say this in my Tunisian classes all the time. The vast majority of problems people have putting this first row in. So we were talking earlier about how chains are in all different places. When they start a project, we call them the foundation chain. This is the foundation chain. And we call it that because it's the foundation of the project, correct? A lot of people that fight with their foundation chains, that have difficulty with them, that can't get a comfortable first row in there, what I tell them to do is go up a hook size or two for that foundation chain. It naturally makes it a little looser. If it's a little looser, it's a little easier to work in, and it avoids having that first row pull in, which is a very common issue for new crocheters, is for that first row to be too tight, because as you keep going, you relax a little bit, your gauge evens out, you're more comfortable, you're not, with a death grip on the hook trying to count. So sometimes making that first slip knot and that first chain on a larger hook will eliminate some of your problems.
Awesome. That's good for me.
Okay, so let's talk about the chain that we made. Now we made 11 chains because I'm doing single crochets in this first row. So this is the front of the chain, and you can tell it's the front of the chain because each one of these chain stitches makes a little V. Once again, I know that my iPad and Zoom don't like it when I'm up too close, but if you see right here, there's a little V at the bottom. So that is the front of the chain. Most of us, including me, when I learned to crochet, we won't say how many years ago because it was a very long time, learned to put our foundation row in the front or the V, to stick our hook right in that V to put our first row. But a habit that's really great to get into is to work in the back or the bump of the chain. So this is the front or the V. If I turn it over, let's see, once again, how close can I get before the camera gets mad? You see these little bumps? It goes bump, 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 bump. I'm going to put my first row of stitches in that bump. And it does a couple of things. It makes a neater edge that is more elastic and more closely mirrors the top edge of your stitches. But also this foundation row, by working in the back or the bump, it helps you to not have that first row pull in. It's looser and slightly more elastic. So we're going to make single crochets. We're going to skip the first chain, and we will talk more about skipping chains, etc. What we do at the beginning of the row changes depending on what stitch we're doing. But for single crochets, the vast majority of the time, you're going to skip one chain, which is the one that's closest to the hook. And that chain is not going to count as a stitch. And so, for example, I wanted to have 10 single crochets in my row. So you may remember that I chained 11, and that's because I know I'm going to lose one. That's called a turning chain. It's the chain that takes up the space of the height of the row, which is a really fussy way of saying that. And we're going to pretend I didn't say that because this is a beginner class. So we're going to skip that first chain. We're going to go into the next one. And again, we're working in the back of the bump. So I'm inserting my hook front to back. Under that bump. I'm going to yarn over. Remember, that's back to front. And I'm going to yarn over the same way I did when I chained. And I'm going to pull it through just the bump. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. 1, 2. Now I'm going to yarn over from back to front and bring that yarn over through both loops on the hook. And now I'm back to 1 loop. And I have made 1 single crochet. This little nonsense over here is the turning chain. So 1 single crochet is made. All right. So moving on to the next stitch, the next back or bump. Now, if you're joining us and you've been crocheting for a little bit and you want to continue to work in the front of the chain, go ahead. But working in the back or bump is a really great habit to have. It's going to make your future life easier, and you're going to look back and be very happy I was insistent about it. So for those of you who are feeling speedy, I did that one a little quicker, but again, don't worry, we're going to keep going and making stitches. So I've inserted my hook under the back or the bump of the chain. Yarn over from back to front. Bring the yarn over just through the bump, just through the stitch. Make sure it goes up onto the fattest part of the hook. Don't work super close or it's going to be too tight. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. 1, 2. Going to yarn over again. Pull that yarn over through both loops. And that has completed the stitch. Into the next bump. Yarn over. Draw it through the bump. Yarn over. Draw through both. And I'm going to do this till I get to the very end. And you don't have to go this slow. This is just so you can see exactly what's going on here. Through the bump. Yarn over back to front. Bring it through the bump. You have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. That is 1 single crochet stitch. So I'm not counting or anything because I knew that I wanted 10 stitches and I knew that I made 11 chains. So I'm just going to keep going until I run out of chains. And remember, we were talking about that chain earlier, that slip knot. Don't worry about that slip knot. We're not going in there. So here's my last bump. There's my last stitch. I'm going to just extend this so you can see what's going on here. All right. So I have 10 stitches. And how am I going to count those stitches? I'm going to look for those V's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you see what I mean by the V? The bottom of that column of stitches, it makes a little V. So once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's the top of my row because that's where my working yarn is. And again, for those of you that have tried crochet before and have worked in the front before, and you know how sloppy that bottom can look how neat that is because I worked in the back or the bump. It exactly matches the top of the row. It's just so much neater. It's such a neater edge. And you will appreciate that as you continue to go on your crochet journey. Renee, do we have anything before we move on? We're going to move on to our next row. We're going to stay on single crochet for a little bit. Don't panic.
So Keith asked, what is the bump you're referring to? Is that the chain that we were going back into?
Yes, again, if you look at the front of the chain, that's the V with the little hat. And if you look at the back of the chain, that's the bump. It's both of those things are the chain, if that makes sense. But again, the vast majority of us were taught to work in the front of the chain, but it doesn't make such a nice edging. Whereas if you learn to work in the back bump, then you get a neater first row.
Awesome. And then I'm just going to go one more before we move on. Oh, wait, we have a follow-up. Does that mean that we use the back bump with the entire project?
That is a loaded question. And again, the problem with me teaching beginner is I've been teaching advanced for so long that I get into like 45 minutes about the history of crochet fabric, and you guys don't care, nor should you. So the short version is this. There are instances if I'm working on a project that I'll go in the back where the bump again. However, this is the foundation row. So this is the only time that you're going to chain, 150 and then work in the back bump again. It doesn't come up again because the next row that we're going to do, we're going to work in existing stitches. We're not going back in that chain, right? There are instances in which you would go back into the chain. There are instances in which you would add an additional chain. And in which case, again, I would consider going into the back bump. But it's not something you have to worry about today. And it's not something for a project like this where I'm essentially making a square or a rectangle. Now that we have done that foundation row, the foundation is completed and we don't have to mess with that again.
Awesome.
Okay, so now we're going to turn. And I was talking before about turning chains, and I hesitate to say always and never because there's always an exception. But the vast, vast, vast majority of the time, when you have finished one row of work and you're moving on to the next row, you're going to make what's called a turning chain. And how many chains you make will depend on the height of the stitch. And we're doing that to get the working yarn from the bottom of a stitch to the top where I need it. So for single crochet, 9,999 times out of 10,000, you're going to chain one. So I'm just going to yarn over back to front, pull it through the loop. There's my chain one, and turn the work. And that chain does not count as a stitch. It's a turning chain in single crochet. It's just there to get me where I need to go. So now I want to have 10 single crochets in this row. And as I go, I want you to pay special attention to the beginning and the end, because I do a lot of customer service for a lot of companies, and the vast majority of beginners have difficulty keeping the number of stitches in their row consistent. They start with 10, they end with 15, or they start with 15 and they end with 8. And 9 times out of 10, it's the first stitch or the last stitch that throws them, because the first stitch and the last stitch are the hardest ones to see. So there's my little V. Now this is the top of the stitch, and we call these loops or legs. So you're going to go under both legs of the stitch. Let's see if I can get up a little closer. So you can see I inserted my hook under both legs of the stitch. And again, this is just for everyday single crochet. There are other stitches that require you to go through one or another, but we're not getting crazy tonight. Now we're going to yarn over and bring it through both of those legs of the stitch. We're bringing it all the way through the stitch. And now we have 2 loops on our hook again. And we're going to yarn over and draw through 2. Oops, I pulled that out too hard. So let's go to the next one. So again, we're not messing with that chain anymore. That chain is occupied and we don't need to play with it. So we're going under both legs of the next stitch, yarn over and pull it up, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to do that all the way across. Under both legs of the stitch, yarn over, pull it through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2. So the single crochet, no matter where you're placing it, is always insert your hook wherever we tell you to insert your hook, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. No matter where that single crochet goes, that's how you make a single crochet. Insert your hook, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. That's all there is to the single crochet now and forever. Although I have had people say this to me for a long time, particularly when I'm teaching, they say that 80% of crochet is knowing where to stick the hook. And I think that's true. And I think that's one of the big differences between crochet and knitting is knitting, you're either knitting in the front of the stitch or knitting in the back of the stitch. It's really your only 2 choices. And I think with crochet, do you crochet in the front loop? Do you crochet in the back loop? Do you go under both legs? Do you go in the space between? Do you go over here? Do you go over there? Do you go over to the other place? You really have to know where you are putting your hook. So there's my second row complete. The other thing I want to point out to you, which is, again, different for a lot of people, single crochet, the front of the stitch and the back of the stitch looks slightly different. So I've had people finish their second row and go, oh no, my second row doesn't look like my first row. I must have done something wrong. You did not. It's just the way the stitch is constructed. The front looks slightly different from the back. So once again, because you are a new crocheter, I want you to count your stitches at every row, because the other thing is, if you make a mistake, it's certainly easier to rip out 1 row than it is to rip out 5 inches. You know what I mean? So I'm going to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have my 10. I'm happy enough. I'm going to go on to the next row. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And I'm going to put my first single crochet in that first single crochet stitch. And I'm going to single crochet all the way across. Hang on, y'all, I got to pull up some more yarn. My Ogo fell off the table and it's at my feet. And I'm going to just single crochet all the way across, counting at the end of every row to make sure I have the right number of stitches. The other thing I want to talk about, if you've made a mistake, if you find out you have a problem, pull your hook out and rip. It comes right out. I always encourage people, if they have a mistake in a row and they just can't find it, go back to the beginning of the row and start that row again. A lot of people are like, oh, I got to the 10th row and I didn't know what I was doing and I panicked and I ripped the whole thing out. And then they get frustrated and they don't want to crochet anymore. But again, one of the differences between crochet and knitting, and one of the things I think crochet has over knitting as a benefit, is if you make a mistake, it's super easy to rip it out and then pick up where you left off, where sometimes in knitting, you can drop a stitch, or, you know, you have so many live stitches at a time. You know, if you have 120 lace stitches on your needle, it's really hard to rip them out and get back to where your mistake was made. Whereas with crochet, nothing's going to unravel, nothing's going to drop. You just rip out whatever you need to rip out and call it a day. How we doing, Renee?
Good so far. Keith asked, and I think this is yes. He said, do you always start a project with a chain row?
Okay, again, if you are new and easily confused, close your ears for the next 13 seconds.
We're asking some big philosophical questions here.
Well, the problem is, guys, because I've been teaching for 20 years, everything becomes a big philosophical question to me. And I will start talking about the history of Viking null binding. You know what I mean? That's just who I am as a crocheter. There is something called a chainless foundation. You can do a foundation single crochet. You can do a foundation double crochet. There are certain motifs. A motif is when, instead of going back and forth in rows, you work from the center out. You can start with a magic ring. Magic ring doesn't have chains. However, 90% of the time, and especially for beginner projects, you're going to start with a chain because you have to have something to work into, right? You can't make your stitches in the air. All right, I'm going to do one more row of singles. And then I was told that we need to go over double crochets before I break your brains. So do we have any more questions, Renee, while I'm finishing up this row?
Give me a sec. I'm just going to look at the chat. Okay. Belinda would like to hear more about the history of crochet. I think that's another class. I agree. I agree. But
perhaps
another
now
class
is not
for
the
sure.
time.
yeah, I
I
think
will say,
we're,
here's what I will say about the history of crochet. Um, there are still doubts there. I don't feel like there is 100% answer. Like if you want to know about the history of hand knitting, I think there is a real linear path from the dawn of time to now. Do you know what I mean? Crocheting was different. There's not crochet from 50 BC in a museum. Do you know what I mean? So does that mean it didn't exist, or did it mean that it wasn't kept, etc.? Most people will tell you that modern crochet started in the 1820s or thereabout with the passion for Irish crochet lace, etc., 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 and that lace crochet, which is what people did back in the olden days, was a way to make a less expensive variation on the needle lace that was the cost of your house back in the 1800s. But there is less verified historical information on the history of crochet than there is on the history of knitting. If you're interested in the knitting one, there's a book that was written probably 50 years ago. It's called The History of Hand Knitting by Bishop Rutt. And if you're interested in the history of hand knitting, that is the reference, the resource. That's a really cool book. And the good bishop wrote it as a hobby. He was interested in knitting and he wrote this book. So it's actually really fascinating. But it's been out for 60 years, you know.
that's amazing. I feel like we all got a degree. This is great.
Your certificates are in the mail.
Okay, I'm going to do one more before we move on.
Okay.
So Nikita said, sometimes when I make chains, my yarn begins to bend a little. How can I avoid that for the future? I make dishcloths, but I haven't graduated to other projects, looking to advance my skills.
I'm not sure what bend means. So if you could write a more specific, like, I don't know what you mean by bend is my problem.
So
The
we
other
have,
thing I will say with this, if you learned on dishcloths, a lot of times if you learn on dishcloths, you learn on our Lily sugar and cream yarn, which you can get at Michael's. That yarn is great for dishcloths and other home projects, and I use it all the time and I love it. But cotton, by its very nature, has less elasticity than other fibers, so it's not as forgiving. If I make a mistake in a project that is wool and I wash it, that mistake might just go away. Do you know what I mean? Because wool as a natural fiber has a lot of elasticity. Acrylic yarn, like this is an acrylic, a high quality acrylic like you can get at Michael's, it has some elasticity, it's forgiving. Cotton doesn't stretch. It just doesn't. And that's what makes it really good for market bags and dishcloths. And a lot of people learn to crochet making market bags and dishcloths, but it's not necessarily the best yarn to learn on because it is not forgiving.
awesome.
Okay.
So Leslie had asked, my work is curling, is that normal? I wonder if that's what Nikita meant about bending. Maybe that's it.
Mine is a little bit too, partly because I'm not paying attention. Without going on another master's level program about gauge, oftentimes if your work is curling, it is too tight. And the easiest way to fix that is to go up a hook size. Now, a lot of people say, well, like when I showed you the label on the Ogo, it says this is the gauge it will get using an H hook. And a lot of people feel like that means they can only use an H hook. Well, we're all different. Some of us crochet loose, some of us crochet tight. You know, your gauge is your gauge. The information that's on a label is more of a general guideline. It gives you a place to start. But if I'm crocheting away and my work is super tight, like it's curling up like this, and again, that's maybe what you meant by bending, it's curling up this way and it's unhappy, it's too tight, just go up a hook size or two and try that and see if it loosens up a little bit. The only time you need to crochet tightly is dishcloths, because when they hit the water, they tend to stretch out. And if you're making the little soft toys that we call amigurumi, those little creatures that everybody loves, you want to crochet those really tightly because you don't want the stuffing to pop out. But other than that, it's supposed to be fun and relaxing. You know what I mean? It just doesn't need to be tight. Tight makes everything hard. So try going up a hook size and seeing if that solves your problem. All right, y'all, we have to move on to the next stitch,
Yep,
or we're going
go
to
for
run out
it.
of time. Okay, so we talked about the turning chain for the single crochet. And we talked about how the turning chain for the single crochet was a chain 1 and that it did not count as a stitch. Now I want to teach you the double crochet stitch because that is the next most common. I mean, there's a bunch of stitches. There's half doubles and trebles and slip stitches and bullions and, you know, all kinds of crazy things. But most often you're going to use a single crochet or a double crochet. And you're always going to need to know how to change. Any pattern that you get, whether it's one of ours or one that you have purchased or downloaded somewhere else, is going to tell you whether the turning chain counts as a stitch or not. But most of the time for double crochet, it is either chain 2 or chain 3, and you will figure out as you stitch which one works for you. I'm a chain 3 person. Most people are. So I'm going to chain 1, 2, 3. And most times, not every time, but most time, that chain 3 replaces the first stitch. So when I go to make my next double crochet, I'm not going to be on this very tippy edge stitch because I'm going to treat that chain 3 as a stitch. And once again, the reason it's a chain stitch is I need to get my yarn from down here, which is the bottom of the row that I'm about to work on, and I need to get that yarn up to the top of the row that I'm going to work on so that I can keep going. So I'm going to put my double crochet in the next stitch. However, when you read the pattern, it's not going to tell you to skip the first stitch because you didn't skip it technically. The chain 3 replaced it. So again, when people have trouble that they don't have the number of stitches that they expect in a row, it very often happens with double crochet, and it's often because people don't know how to handle that chain 3. So we're going to make a different stitch now. So the first thing you're going to do for a double crochet is make a yarn over, like you're going to chain, but you're going to just yarn over and stop. So there's my yarn over my hook, and now I'm going to stop. I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to go in the next stitch. I'm going under both legs of the stitch like we've been doing. And I'm going to yarn over and draw up a loop, making sure that it gets up onto the fat part of my hook. Now I have 3 loops on my hook. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to yarn over and draw through 2. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. 1, 2. And I'm going to yarn over and draw through 2. And that is the double crochet. In the United States and Canada, just to mess you up, if you get an English pattern, all the words are different. So be aware of that too. But here in North America, this is what we call a double crochet. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch under both legs, unless it tells you otherwise. Yarn over and draw up a loop. I have 3 loops on my hook. Yarn over and draw through 2 twice. That was one time. That's the next time. Yarn over, insert my hook in the next stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. So that is a double crochet. Let's get it up a little closer to the cut so you can see it's way taller. And the double crochet looks a little more similar on the back and the front than the single does. The front and the back of the double are very, very similar, whereas the front and the back of the single are very, very different. How we doing?
I think we're good so far.
Okay, because I want to get to the end of this row again, just to talk about turning chains and similar things.
Yeah, go for it.
So we're going to yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. You can also see my hand that's holding the fabric. And I didn't talk about this before because I do it out of habit. My fingers that hold the fabric are moving to the base of every stitch. It's not something I'm doing consciously. It's just that's where those fingers go to hold the work so that I'm not is so that it's not sloppy and wobbly. If I'm trying to hold my stuff way down here and get in that hole, it's not going to go. I can't really put my hook in there unless I've got my fingers on it to give me a stable basis on which to stitch. Now remember, we talked about that single crochet doesn't count, that turning chain on the single crochet doesn't count as a stitch, so I didn't try and put a stitch in there. I had 10 single crochets, and then I have 10 double crochets, and the first one is that chain 3, right? Because we're counting that as a stitch. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Started with 10 stitches, ended with 10 stitches. But I do want to get at least one more row in because I want to talk about what happens when you come up to that turning chain and how you stitch in it. So once again, I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. You turn the work. I am not putting a stitch in the first stitch because that chain 3 replaces it, but the pattern's not going to tell you to skip because you technically didn't skip. But this is where I'm going to begin, is in the second stitch. Yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, draw up a loop, 3 loops on hook, 1, 2, 3, yarn over, draw through 2 twice. Excuse me 1 second. Gets dry talking for an hour straight in a room full of yarn. Okay, so I'm going to get to the end of this row and I'll answer any more questions that you have. And then I want to talk about how to address that turning chain, how to stitch into it when we come up to it. Renee, if we have any questions, pipe right in.
So far, so good. Samantha said we need a lot of forgiveness. At least I do. I think that was with regards to earlier talking about curling of the work. So I just want to say, Samantha, I agree. Otherwise, good to go.
Okay, so I'm coming up to the end of this row. And this comes back, I think it was the question that Keith asked at the very beginning, am I always going to work in the back of the bump? So when I want to put this last stitch in, I have to put it in this chain 3. And so the chain 3 is not going to have 2 neat little legs of a stitch like everything else did. So am I going to fiddle in there and I'm going to look for the back or the bump of that chain? No, I am not. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to insert my hook. So a chain has 3 legs, 2 that you see in the front and 1 that you see in the back. So the 2 in the front are the V, the 1 in the back is the bump. But I like my stitch to be well anchored. So I'm inserting it right here. So you can see there's 1 strand under my hook and 2 over. So I'm inserting in there, yarn over, draw up a stitch, and finish my double. Again, the vast majority of the time that you have problems counting your stitches, you have messed up at the beginning or you have messed up at the end. So let's count and make sure we have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can see that edge one, it looks a little bit different, but that's because it's a chain stitch. Now, a lot of projects that we make, either that's going to be hidden in the seam, or maybe we're going to put in edging. You're not going to get excited about it. We're not going to really see it. So once again, I did my chain 3 and turn, or I noticed your inspirations pattern say turn and chain 3. It doesn't matter. You're doing the same thing either way. And then I'm going to double crochet across. And then again, I'm going to put a double in that last turning chain one more time, just to make sure that you see how that goes. And then we're going to end off because I want you to see that too. I will say we were talking, this is just an anecdote. We were talking earlier about left-handed. I learned to crochet from my mother when I was 12 years old, and she is left-handed and I am right-handed. So she stood on one side of the ironing board and I stood on the other side of the ironing board. And I found out when I was well into my 30s that I yarned over backwards, that I was yarn overing for doing my yarn overs in the wrong way. And again, it sort of didn't matter. My work looked lovely, but when I tried to do more complicated stitches, more interesting techniques, to me at least, like broomstick and Tunisian and Bruges, having the yarn over be incorrect really messed me up. So I had to, 20 years later, I had to relearn how to crochet because I did it backwards for 20 years of my life. So here we are with that chain 3 at the end. I have to put that last stitch in. I'm going to put it right, I'm going to just jam it right down there in that chain. There's going to be 1 strand under and 2 over. If it goes the other way and you're under 1 strand, is it going to ruin your life? It is not. It's just more durable if you go under 2. It's just a little sturdier. So now when I want to end my work, and then I can go show you other things because we have 8 minutes left. But when I'm ready to end my work, I'm going to cut my yarn. Once again, I'm going to leave a nice long tail. And the reason is when I finish my whole project, whatever that project is, I'm going to take my yarn needle, I'm going to thread my tail on it, and I'm going to weave that tail in and out so it doesn't show and nothing comes unraveled. If you make a short little stubby tail, they're really hard to weave in. So give yourself a nice long tail. If it's too long, you can always cut it down, but if it's too short, then it's just a pain in the rear end and not worth fussing with. So there's my loop is on my hook. I'm going to act like I'm doing a chain. I already cut it, so that's fiddly. I'm going to act like I'm doing a chain and I'm going to pull it all the way through. Give that a little tug. And now it won't come unraveled. That's all you have to do. Just cut it, pull that cut in through your last loop, give it a nice tug, and you're all set. Since we have a couple minutes left, does anybody need a refresher on anything we did earlier, but we don't have a ton of time, but if there's anything you need me to show you, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'm going to ask you a really quick question, and then would it be possible to go over single crochet again as well?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. So the question is, does it matter which way you turn the piece? I've heard turn like a book page, and I've heard it doesn't matter.
It circles back to what I said earlier, which is as long as you do it the same way every time, it doesn't matter. I have never found it to be that deep. You know what I mean? I wouldn't turn this way and then turn that way. Do you know what I mean? Or turn this way 2 rows and then turn that way the other row. With crochet, especially, the devil's in the details. Do you know what I mean? If you, whatever you're doing, and if you do it the same way every time it comes up, then your work is going to look neater and more detailed. So I tend to turn this way. I don't know if anybody taught me to do that, or it's just I've been crocheting for 100 years and that's how I do it. You know what I mean? But yeah, if thinking of it like a book page helps you, then that's totally fine. But again, are the crochet police going to come to get you? No, they're not. All right, we wanted another row of single crochet.
Yes.
Okay. Don't look at what I'm doing. I'm just starting another piece real quick so that I have something attached. This is not how you would do it at home. So once again, I'm going to insert, there's no yarn over or anything at the beginning. I'm just inserting my hook under both legs of the stitch, yarn over and draw it through. I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, draw through 2. That's all there is to the single. Go in the next stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop. Now you have 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Now, in this case, I am coming up, I've got that chain again. So it's not the stitch that you're making that sort of, I forgot the word. It's not the stitch that you're making that dictates whether you have to stitch in a chain or not. It's the stitch that you're working into. So even though I'm doing singles here, I have to put a stitch in this stitch in where these 3 doubles were. So I'm still going to have to go under those 2 strands and put my last single in there. And again, count, 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 and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's my 10 stitches. And if I'm going to do another single crochet row, I'm going to turn and chain 1 or chain 1 and turn, and I'm going right in that first stitch. because the vast majority of the time, turning chains don't count as a stitch in single crochet. All right, we have 3 minutes left, now or never.
Samantha asked, what is the best and easiest way to start/introduce a new ball of yarn into your project?
I will tell you what I do is I try. Now, if I'm doing color work, it's a completely different conversation. If I'm just doing a bunch of balls of yarn and they're all the same color, first off, I try not to do that in the middle of the row, because if it's a garment or something that you're going to wear, there's too much tension on that. So I try not to do that. So I try to do it at the end of the row. I try to force it to the end of the row and not join in the middle. Now, if it's very, very expensive yarn or you have a very, very limited amount of that, sometimes you can't do it. But I like to do it on the end of the row. And what I will do, so whatever my last stitch is, here's another ball of yarn just to show you. So I'm on my last yarn over of my last stitch, right? So I'm going to pull up a fold 4 to 6 inches from the end, make that my last yarn over, and now I can chain one, chain however many, and turn. I like to do it before I make the turning chain, and that's particularly important if you're changing color. You need to do the change before the turning chain so that the edges look neat.
Awesome. And so with 3 minutes to spare, Leslie asked, what is your favorite yarn to use and why? This is also a very big question and a small question.
It's like picking a favorite kid. How do you do that? If I'm going to learn, I want to learn on a worsted or a bulky, because again, bigger yarn, thicker yarn, not black, not fuzzy, not brunette blanket. As much as I love brunette blanket, you don't want to learn on that. It's too hard to see your stitches. For things that I design a lot of pieces. I tend to prefer a lighter weight yarn, fingering weight or a DK weight. I like Bernat Bundle Up. I have a blanket pattern coming out, Bernat Bundle Up, really soon, that combines Tunisian and traditional crochet that I think is going to be super cool. The reason I like the lighter weight yarns in crochet is because crochet is so dense. A lighter weight yarn gives you more drape. And also, if you're going for, I'm the person that buys, yak yarn and Kiviot and, unicorn mane and that kind of, like, I buy a lot of yarn. A finer yarn tends to get you more bang for your buck. You get more yardage and therefore more square inches for your money. But my favorite Bernat yarn right now is Bundle Up. Since you made me pick.
Agreed, 'tis the season for blanket making.
Okay.
We're in pumpkin spice
else?
season. I think nothing we can probably answer in a minute, but I think we're good to go.
Well, then I'm going
Mary
to go
Beth,
back
where can everyone find you?
The easiest way, if you need my attention, is Instagram, which is hooked, HOOKED, the number 4 life, LIFE LLC. So hooked for life LLC. Either myself or my assistant, we're always on Instagram. So if you need my attention, you want to show me something, you want to ask a question, that's the easiest place to find me. I appreciate it a follow first, but we will answer questions on Instagram. And then of course I have a, just Google me, you'll find me, I'm everywhere.
Awesome. Okay, thank you everyone so much for joining us today for this live community classroom with Michaels. Don't forget to share your work with #MakeItWithMichaels and #YarnSpo. Just a reminder that you can find more classes on michaels.com and a recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you, bye-bye.